Okay, chapter 22, day 1. In class we talked about and we looked at a situation of a confidence interval for boys and girls with green eyes. So here's the formal notes to go with that so you guys have them. So chapter 22, day 1 talks about confidence interval for two proportions. So we have two proportions. We don't know if they're different or not. Sometimes we know they're different ahead of time and we're trying to figure out how much different they are. So we set up a confidence interval. A confidence interval in general, again, measures some statistic that you're looking at, and then you have some error that you're willing to allow. So what are we measuring? We're measuring the difference between two proportions, P1 hat and P2 hat, and then our margin of error, plus or minus, Z star from the back of the book, and then our standard error. But you must define population 1 and population 2. You must define them so that way this difference has meaning. It's great to take a difference in numbers, but it has no meaning unless you know who's population 1 and who's population 2. What's new is this standard error. We talked about it in class, how individually the deviations cannot be allowed to add together. So we have to square them. That gets rid of this square root symbol. Add them, and then square root the whole thing to get back to standard deviation. So this piece goes along with that formula. Those two pieces go together. And then it's just plug, not chug, but plug, and use our calculator. So on a test, your work would be just showing all your substitutions, and then you're allowed to go to the calculator to get the numerical answer. Conditions. These are the conditions we ran over in class, but I want to talk about it just in general. First of all, you need randomization or a representative sample within each group. Each group you have to talk about that. So if you sampled really well for the boys, but your method for the girls wasn't appropriate, we're still in trouble. So each group has to be randomized or representative sample. Second condition is independence between the groups, from boys to girls. From corn in one growing place to corn in another growing place. Between. The next is independence within each group. So each group within itself, we have to meet the independence deal as well as population being 10 times the sample for each group. So independence between, condition 3, independence within, as well as population bigger than 10 times sample for each group. You gotta make sure you take a large enough sample of one group, a large enough sample for the other group. Or I should say, you gotta make sure that the population is large enough for the sample you took for each group. Condition 4 is, did you take a large enough sample? So again, you're going to check N1 P1 hat, N1 1 minus P1 hat, N2 P2 hat, N2 1 minus P2 hat. Make sure that at least 10 on each of those to meet the requirements, so we can get at least a normal looking curve. If you meet all those conditions, we say it's okay to do a two proportion Z interval. And on your calculator, the two proportion Z interval, again, is stat, and then you arrow over to test, B, stat test B. That looks like a D, but that's really just an arrow symbol. And that's it. I mean, you have the difference. When you write your conclusion will either talk about one group being more than the other, one group being less than the other, or one group being higher or the other group being higher. You just have to wait and write your conclusion based on the way your data comes out. Oh, that's it. It's a really quick piece.